Welcome to this Monday morning. Excited to be with you Monday, the 12th, 2024. We're continuing to go over Extreme Ownership by Jacko, Willink, and Leif Babin. Guys, if you ever listen to Jacko's podcast or get a chance to listen to some of Jacko's material, phenomenal guy, Navy SEAL, great leader. And today we're coming out of chapter 6, Simple. That's the title of chapter 6, Simple. And I want to say this upstairs today, we get to go over this book as a team. We usually invest about 30 minutes, kind of going around the room, talking about our core values and recognizing people as they connected to those core values. And then we'll spend about 30 minutes teaching, and everybody will take a turn reading a chapter and sharing. Today, Leanne Cash. What a phenomenal share she did today. Phenomenal lady. Leanne did such a great job of going through this chapter and really equating it to so many different ways we can apply it in our life. I hope I can do half as good of a job as she did this morning. So I'm just going to kind of brief you on what the chapter is about. Jacko talking about a new lieutenant who had some Iraqi soldiers he's training. These guys have been well prepared to go into battle, but they've never been in battle. They never had guns shooting real ammo firing over their head. The real deal, right? I don't know if y'all have ever seen We Were Soldiers. What a great movie. If you've never seen it, I recommend watching it. But there's a scene where they're getting off the helicopters, and the general, who is Mel Gibson, he says, this is great, but one thing's missing. And so he waits for the next helicopter, and he comes in and he says, boom, 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 you're dead. Now, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? The guy just freezes. He says, you're dead. Now what? What do you do? The guy jumps out. He says, get out, jumps. And other ones follow. So this lieutenant had never been under real warfare. He'd been trained, but never been seen the bullets flying. And so he had a big plan to go out into Ramadi and set up a camp in the middle of Ramadi. This lieutenant was going to take his Iraqi soldiers and do this. The deal is he wanted to go right to the heart of the battle before ever really being in battle. And luckily, Jacko, a good general, recognized this. He said to the lieutenant, sir, do you think that going that far out would be the best move? Maybe we could just try to go a mile right off the bat, go a mile and see how that works. And the guy's like, what, you don't think we can do it? And kind of got a little strong in his demeanor. And Jocko said, no, it's not that. He said, these guys are going to be in serious combat for the first time. There's several interferences that could take place. My recommendation is let's just go to this first camp and not try to go to the third camp. Why don't we just go to the first one? That way we have clear communication, nothing can get distorted. The guy reluctantly agreed, and the lieutenant took his Iraqi troops, and Jocko sent some of his Navy SEALs with them. And they go out, and Jocko kind of looked at his watch when it first started, and he was like, I wonder how far they'll have to go before we interact and have real gunfire. And when he was looking at the lieutenant and his Iraqi soldiers before going out, he knew they weren't ready for what they were fixing to see. They just weren't quite capable of understanding what they're fixing to get involved in. So 12 minutes, he hears the gunfire starting, and it's volleying back and forth, back and forth. In that gunfire, 2 Iraqi soldiers were shot. Now, you had the Al Qaeda over in Iraq that were fighting for their government, and then you had Iraqi soldiers that were fighting for freedom with the U.S. soldiers. 2 of the Iraqi soldiers fighting with the U.S. soldiers were shot. One wounded, one killed. The Navy SEALs risked their life to go out there and drag those Iraqi soldiers out instead of leaving them on the street for dead or letting the one die. They brought them back in. Unfortunately, when they got back to the base, one had already passed away. They were able to save the other. He was wounded. The lieutenant, who Jocko recommended not go that far, recognized why Jocko had said that. Keep it simple. Don't try to go out there and eat the whole elephant all at once when you can just take it a bite at a time. Had the lieutenant not listened to Jocko and had went that far, they probably would have lost way more than one man. They could have lost the whole troop. So the value of keeping it simple, how does that apply? I was thinking back to my life. Um, when I thought about this was probably 10 years ago. I was ready to, no, this was about 9 years ago. I was ready to start a team. And I had a good friend of mine, Bernie Gallerini, who was in the coaching with the Mike Free organization that I'm in. And he had done such a phenomenal job in Hendersonville working with the team. And I was ready to start that process. I had talked with one of Harold Cry's guys, one of his, basically like one of his lieutenants, and discussed with him what it looked like and getting started in that process. And the guy said, "Look, Harold's not going to go for it. He's not going to be big on what you're proposing." Well, I took that as Harold ain't going to do it. So I go out, I find a building, call Lindsay. Lindsay comes out. We pray over the building. We're ready to move forward with it. But before I do, I talk to my coach, who'd been my coach at that time, probably at least 3 or 4 years, Coach Joe Lehman, phenomenal general. He's been in the business forever. He was one of Mike Ferry's first 8 coaches. And he says, "Elijah, have you spoke to Harold about this?" And I said, "Well, no, sir, but I talked to his second in command, and he said that Harold would not be interested in doing anything like this." He said, "Elijah, I know Harold." He said, "I believe he's going to listen to you if you'd call and talk to him. Why don't you call and talk to him before you make any decisions?" I didn't think it would matter, but I did call Harold Cry, and we spoke, and it was a great conversation. And Harold, I think, tried his best to talk me out of going this route, going the team route. He was new to the area. Harold has probably over 3,000 agents that work in his company, Crylike, number one company in the state of Tennessee, number one in the Mid-South. So we're doing something that's going to disrupt that a little bit, and I didn't think he would allow it. But after we talked, and he did his very best, he finally said, "Okay, Elijah, whatever you want, just tell the broker, we'll take care of it." I thought, whoa, I couldn't believe it. And that, Mr. Cry, the leader of the largest company in the state of Tennessee, number one in the Mid-South, had agreed to allow me to go this new route. And I remember Harold Cry said to me, he said, after we were about to get off the phone, he said, "Elijah, don't get too big for your britches." And I said, "No, sir." I was honored and humbled that he gave me an opportunity to stay working right here in the same building I'm working in now for over 15 years. And I look back at that and I think, man, if Coach Joe hadn't had that strong conversation with me, I was that lieutenant, thought I was ready to go out and start my own thing, but hadn't Coach Joe had that conversation with me and Harold Cry being willing to let somebody that is much younger coming up stay in his building and run a program that they weren't used to, and they were willing to adjust some of their things to be able to help us. Had those guys not been willing to work with me, I probably would have went out there and started my own business. And the guys, that would have, I look at it today, now being a business owner of a company since February, owning a new company and naming it Elevate. I look at it today and I think, man, I was not ready for owning a company at that time. I am so thankful I had the cover of Crylike and Harold and Lisa and all they did to add value to their company, and cutting checks and payroll and all those things that I just didn't have a clue what I was about to sign up for. And so by keeping it simple and staying in this building for another 9 years before venturing out and starting my own company, Elevate Real Estate, with the help of Lindsay and so many great team members, um, I probably would have. It could have. I feel, I definitely can appreciate any business owner out there that is starting your own business, doing your own thing. I know that's a tough job, and I'm so thankful that Coach Joe and Harold Cry and Lisa and all them listened and worked with me and helped me not run out there and do something probably very foolish 9 years ago. And so today I felt like I was way more prepared to go on to that next level. But when I talked to Mr. Cry and I thanked him, I said, "Mr. Cry, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it. And you and Lisa have been so great to work with. And thank you." And he said, "Elijah," he said, "I remember when we were young and we got our start." He said, "You're going to do just fine." And that compliment meant so much to me. It was so different 9 years later. 9 years ago, don't get too big for your britches. Now, Elijah, I remember when we started off, "You're going to do just fine." It took a while. And so, how do we make the complicated simple? How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time, one step at a time. We don't have to venture out there. It's not a race. We don't have to go see how far we can go and how fast we can get there. We can go at a healthy pace. And once we learn how to set up camp there, we can move to the next. Zig Ziglar, a block in a mailbox is what he called it. He started on his weight loss journey. And so he went one block and one mailbox further. So when he first started off, he went a block and a mailbox. Then the next time he went one more block and one more mailbox. And that's how he continued to travel until he got to the weight he wanted to get to. So it's a journey, and we should learn to embrace that and enjoy that. And when we try to go out too fast, too far, too fast, that's when it stresses us out. That's when we can lose. And in life, that's when it can cost us our marriages, it can cost us our walk with God, it can cost us our careers when we try to go too far, too fast. One last thing. Last night I was talking with my daughter, Emmy, and I said, Emmy, could you tell me about something that used to be really hard for you that now is simple? And she said, I love my new teacher, Miss Elenise, I believe. She said, and I said, well, why do you love her so much? And she said, well, because she takes long problems and makes them short so that I can understand how to do the problem. It's math problems. And she said, she takes long problems and she makes them short. And it makes it simple for us to understand it. I think that's what we're trying to say. Sometimes problems seem really big, but how can we make those problems short steps? So it ain't like so it's like a ladder. You're climbing one step at a time, and not trying to uh, take one big leap and then another big leap. That seems too far. It seems overwhelming, almost impossible. So my encouragement to you today is: what's overwhelming you? What seems too big for you right now? What seems like a challenge that um, seems just maybe you give up because it seemed like it was too far out there? Back it up. Yeah, it's good to have the end in mind. That's beautiful. That's called vision. But back it up. What's that first step look like? What's that second step look like? That third step? How do you get there? And then sooner or later, you'll get there, folks. And when you do, go ahead and get a bigger vision. Figure out what that's going to look like and start working your way there. Thank you. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your week. Thank you.